I was in education for 33 years and I was a deputy head or a head teacher for nearly 19 out of those 33 years.
What does a deputy and a head teacher do?
You are running a business, except you ain't got shareholders. Well, you have, you've got parents. And you haven't got profit and loss, you just can't lose money. You've got to run it on the budget you've got. It's entirely up to you as head. You've actually got a lot of power as head. So you can run a school that is all set on discipline because you think discipline is the most important thing. What I wanted was, I knew that there were kids in my school that at home, dad had gone years ago. Mum was struggling and was relying a little bit too much on a bottle of wine every night to keep her going. He's all right 2 minutes late to my lesson, he needs an hour's detention. He's just fed his brothers and sisters and brought them to primary school, and then he's come in, so give him a break a little bit. So you have to balance all of those things. What I wanted was to run a school that belonged to the kids. And what I mean by that is, it's not there for the adults in the building, it's there for them, and it's there to serve them.
Why is D&T so important?
I believe it's the only subject left on the curriculum at the moment that really challenges kids to take knowledge that they've gained, but either within D&T itself, because it's got its own body of knowledge. You know, you've got material science in there, you've got machinery, you've got design, and design itself is something that I think everybody needs to learn. But you're also bringing in maths, physics, you're bringing in all these things that you learn elsewhere in the curriculum that sometimes you learn without context.
Yes.
It's like, why am I learning this bit of maths? Just shush, there's an exam coming.
Yeah. Huge thank you to this week's podcast sponsor, Enginuity. Enginuity is dedicated to closing the skills gap in UK engineering and manufacturing, creating a thriving and more productive sector that is at the forefront of delivering solutions to society's greatest challenges. Thank you for watching this episode. I hope you enjoy it.
Tony Ryan, I'm Chief Exec of the Design and Technology Association. Been there for just over 7 years now. Prior to that, I was in education for 33 years and I was a deputy head or a head teacher for nearly 19 out of those 33 years. Okay.
Tell me about the D&T Association then.
We're evolving and we're changing, I would say. I mean, when I took over, we've been established since 1989. The subject was had its heydays really in the 90s under Labour, and its purpose was to look after design and technology education in schools and support teachers to deliver the best quality education they could deliver. When I joined, we had a fairly mediocre membership. I was in a really lovely position that the job sort of looked for me and I didn't look for the job, which is a good position to be in. So I could ask lots of questions. I wasn't really happy. I thought 8,700, which is what we were on membership at the time, was not good enough. So they sort of knew that if they appointed me that they were going to get somebody slightly different to the role who was going to shake things up a bit. We got about 29,000, 30,000 members now, so that's improved, and that's no rocket science.
What is a member? Is that an individual?
A member is probably a teacher in school, predominantly, or a department in school that has joined as a group. And what do we offer them? Well, we lobby for the subject because the subject is struggling. I don't know how deep you want me to get on that, but I mean, if I give you some numbers quickly, in 2003 we had 430,000 GCSE entries and about 28,000 A-level entries, and last year that was 78,000 and just over 10,000. So it's plummeted in popularity in schools. Number of reasons for that, which I could get into. But I really believe, I mean, I'm passionate about it. It was the subject that brought me into teaching. I was a car mechanic trying to work out what to do next. And then and I accidentally went into teaching and I did design and technology, and my God, I loved it. And the kids loved it. Yeah. Because when I look back, I was really lucky to work with some brilliant people. And I was a head of department in my second year of teaching, which is crazy. You know, I knew nothing, but there was a lack of teachers then. So it was like you got promoted quick. But the people that I worked with were just amazing, and we did really great things. I'm going to give you one quick example of it. Like, we picked a site that was derelict round the corner from the school. We said to the kids, right, we want you to design something that you're going to build on that site. You can design anything you want, but you've got to justify it. You can't just build a nice place that you want to live in. You've got to justify it. You've got to work out where the money's going to come from. We will bring in town planners, we will bring in architects, we will bring in designers, we will bring in all sorts, and we will get that expert help. But you've got to model it, you've then got to present it back to this panel of experts at the end, and you've got to do the whole thing. I couldn't get the kids to go home. They would not go home. They just loved what they were doing. And the council got really involved because it was like kids involved in a bit of land that was there. So it was that sort of work we were doing, which with hindsight was way ahead of its time. And the reason we were doing that really was because it really grabbed the kids. I was in a girls' school, and a lot of the girls when we first started just didn't want to be in the workshop, didn't want to be around this stuff. But the more you made it about people, the more excited they got about the work. And the year before I left there, we had every student in the school took GCSE, which I was so proud of, and 86% got B or higher on GCSE.
Amazing.
It's because they love what they were doing.
Yeah, makes a difference. Yeah. So then let's get into why is D&T so important?
I believe it's the only subject left on the curriculum at the moment that really challenges kids to take knowledge that they've gained, but either within D&T itself, because it's got its own body of knowledge. You know, you've got material science in there, you've got machinery, you've got design, and design itself is something that I think everybody needs to learn. But you're also bringing in maths, physics, you're bringing in all these things that you learn elsewhere in the curriculum that sometimes you learn without context.
Yes.
It's like, why am I learning this bit of maths? Just there's an exam coming. Yeah. So it allows them to put it into use, and it allows them to see, I can see why I'm learning that. I get that. I don't subscribe completely to the fact that every kid that does design and technology is going to work in a tech sector, so therefore we need to there is that is part of it. But if all we produce are very picky consumers, that before they buy anything, the first question they ask is, what happens at end of life? Does this end up in landfill? If so, do I really need it? What material is it made out of, and why is it made out of that material? I wonder where this was made. Did the person that made this get paid properly? If they're asking all those questions, then our job's done, really. You're going to have a next generation of consumers that will very carefully choose what they buy and where they buy it from. At the other end of that, you've got students, we were just having a chat before we started filming and just saying, a lot of kids don't realise that there's jobs out there that are growing sectors in design, in engineering, in manufacturing, and they just don't know that the jobs are out there because careers advice can't give them everything. So if we can bring that in the curriculum and we can show them that these jobs are out there, then actually that's going to motivate them a little bit more. Let me tell you a story quickly.
Please do, yeah.
My school, head teacher, Brompton Bikes was up the road from us. Will Butler Adams, he won't mind me saying, he's slightly eccentric, you know, but he was nearby, and I kept saying to him, will you come into my school? Will you come into my school? Yeah, I will, I'm really busy. Eventually he said, look, I'll come in at a lunchtime. Can you set me up at a lunchtime and I'll talk to a few kids? How many will I have? I said, I haven't got a clue. I'll put some posters up. You might have 5, you might have 50, I don't know. Turns out it wasn't even raining, so there was no reason for it. You know, they weren't escaping the rain or anything, but there was 120 in the hall. He's turned up late, which apparently is a trait of his. I'm panicking because there's 120 kids in the hall, and I'm thinking, well, what am I going to do now? I'm going to have to get them all out, blah, blah, blah. He's turned up late. He's got his bike with him. He said, can I bring my bike in to show them? And I said, yeah, of course you can. Didn't realise he was going to jump on his bike at the end of the hall, cycle down the middle of them all, got to the front, folded it up into this little package, put it on the stage, and said, I spent 10 years of my life working on this thing. Does anyone want to hear the story? Oh man, he had them. He absolutely had them. At the end of break, an hour long, I'm forcing them out the door to go to the next lesson. They didn't want to go, they wanted to stay and talk to him. Next day, no lie, I've got 4 of the stroppiest kids in year 10 following me along the corridor. That guy said that I need a C if I'm going to go and work for Brompton, and at the moment I'm on D. How do I get a C?
That's amazing.
And you're just thinking, well, that's the power of what you can do if you can show them what's possible.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to do at the association now on a bigger scale. We're trying to show kids why they're learning what they're learning, and what's possible if you get that qualification and you get that knowledge base.
And how do we do that at scale? Because I have multiple conversations like this. The guest before you had the same conversation, is that it feels like you can make an impact doing that one session. I did it at high school at the end of last year, 300 year 7s in assembly. But then you leave and they go back to their other classes, they forget about it. But then you know that same day there's another 100,000 kids that needed to have also been captivated and told about manufacturing. How do we do it at scale?
We've started at the bottom because there is a real growth of design and technology at primary education at the moment. That's forced by Ofsted. Ofsted have said that you've got to teach the whole curriculum. You can't have 4 STEM days in a year and call it D&T, which is what used to happen. So you've got to teach it properly now. So there's real growth there. But if we're not careful, what happens is, and this is becoming a bit of a mantra for me, is that you end up going then from primary to secondary, and then you do what you've always done, what they've always done, which is you make a wooden box, which is a jewellery box, or it's a pencil holder, or whatever it might be. I was in one school and they're making a wooden pen, and the kids had turned around and said to me, a boy of course, said to me, I've already got a pencil case. Well, I don't know why I'm making this, because it's too big, it ain't going to go in my bag anyway.
It's rock hard.
Just shut up, make it, you know. I'm making a clock, I'm making a cushion, why are we doing these things? So what we have done is we've reached out, and LinkedIn is a wonderful thing, and just reached out and said, look, if you're a company at the moment and you've got an exciting project that is challenging you, let us work with you and let us scale that so 11 to 14 year olds can work on it. We want the same problem, we don't want to change the problem.
Yep.
And what we'll do is we want videos of your designers, your engineers, whatever it might be, so as kids can see somebody 10 or 15 years older than them and go, wow, I want to be that person, I want to do that job. So we've got 20 contacts out there now, which I've got 4,500 downloads on, which we're really pleased with. I mean, because this is really tricky. One teacher said to me, I've got a choice. I make a clock with year 9s, or I solve loneliness for the elderly, which is one of the contexts. He said, I know which one's more exciting, but which one's more difficult? It's clear that, you know, the second one is more difficult. So now we need to help teachers to actually take this to transgress to this new way of working. And some of them in there are brilliant. I mean, we've got Gola have come in. When I was a kid at school, the Gola bag was, I mean, that was the one that you had for sports. And that's still a retro bag, they're one of their biggest sellers. So they said, look, we want a sustainable material, we'll help with the materials, but we want the kids to design something that they will take their sports kit to school. Could be a backpack, could be whatever they wanted. And then what we'll do is, the best ones, we'll get them up to the factory and we'll show them around what we do. We make them all here, we design them all in the UK, so they can come up with their parents, they can see around it. And the best one out of the top 6 we'll make. And we'll do a small batch of it and we'll sell them. So you could be a 12-year-old student at school now, and in a year's time your bag could be being sold in Sports Direct by Gola. That's the sort of context we're trying to put out there, that's what we're trying to create. And I think that brings it from doing something in one school which makes an impact to doing it in multiple schools which will make a bigger impact.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's also, no, before I give my opinion, what's the challenge with the brands that you deal with, or lack of brands that you deal with?
The challenge is people want to help, so they reach out on LinkedIn, and it's like, what you're doing is great. We want to work with you. And then you need a day's filming, so you're going to need to pull people off their day job for a few hours whilst you film them and whatever. And with a lot of companies, especially with SMEs, that's really hard because they're really busy, and it's just fitting it in and getting it there. We've managed to do it at the moment with very little financial support. We've done it all ourselves. We do all the video editing ourselves. We were going to edit it out. We were actually going to ship that out, but then we found we'd have to stand over it and actually tell the editor exactly what to clip and what to leave in and whatever. So it's much easier to do that ourselves. We create all the support material around it, which is like vast, because we can't assume that the teacher's familiar with CAD, for example. So there's a CAD unit in there that shows you how to use whatever CAD you decide to use in school. But the challenge is finding the time and getting the expertise in school. I've got myself into trouble along the way as well. I said, you know, I don't want 55-year-old grey blokes on the video. And then every 55-year-old grey bloke in the country phoned me and said, oh, is that it? I'm done now, am I? And he was like, no, I'm a 61-year-old grey bloke. What I'm saying is I want kids to be able to see somebody 10 years older than them.
Yeah.
That's the key bit. So yeah, the tricky bit is getting the time. The desire from companies is definitely there. They want to work with it, they want to help it. And they want to be more engaged with education, and part of that is self-interest.
Yeah.
Because they realise that if they don't get involved earlier down, waiting for kids to come out of university and then picking them up is just not working for them anymore.
Yeah. It's also good for the brands as a brand. You know, someone like Gola, that is a retro brand now, if they had kids working on projects to create their next line of products, well, there's their future customer base.
It does their brand no harm, does it?
No, it certainly doesn't.
And yeah, a lot of the companies that have come in working with us have said it gives us a chance to really show our brand to a clientele that we find difficult to reach.
Yeah. I read a line, Tony entered teaching almost by accident. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, well, it was by accident. It was completely by accident. I was spectacularly unsuccessful at school, hated school. Wasn't helped by the fact that I went to quite a brutal Catholic school where violence from teachers on kids was a fairly regular thing. It was back in the day. If you did something wrong, you got whacked, basically. So I had a deputy head of the school. I was talking in class, shouldn't have been. Taken out, bent over, and he jumped off a chair onto my backside with a cane because he couldn't get enough leverage without jumping off the chair to actually get on my backside. And that sort of brutality was fairly routine at school. So I couldn't wait to get out. I just hated the place. Didn't know what to do. Became a car mechanic accidentally. Loved being a car mechanic. It was so much fun. I still haven't laughed as much as I did in those days as my apprenticeship. It was funny. You had guys in there, I worked for Fiat, and there were guys in there that were Italian that were just hilarious. And I loved it. And I found that I wasn't half as thick as school made me feel.
Yeah.
So I took every qualification I could find. It was like, you know, I'll have BTECs, I'll have HNCs, HNDs. I grabbed all of those, and it was like, I want to do a management cert now. If I do a management cert, will you put me in management? Yes, we will. And by this stage, I was a half decent mechanic, and I was working on their press department. So basically, when they brought out a new car, they went around hotels around the country and showed it off to the press. So I was following the cars around and changing gearbox in the car park at 3 o'clock in the morning and stuff like that. But it was great fun when you're younger. But I wanted that next step. So I asked them if I could go to college. They said no. I said, all right, I'll take a day's holiday every week for the year to get this course. I was that driven really to get it. I passed it with distinction, and I said, right, I've got management now. And they went, no, you're too valuable on the workshop. You've got to stay there for a couple of years first, and then we'll give you a place. And I wasn't doing that. I was on a journey at this stage, and I thought I need a degree. Then I need a degree. That's the next bit. How do I get a degree? But at this stage, I'm used to a salary. I'm used to a car. I didn't want to go back to having nothing. And then I'm coming home on the train on the tube one night. Looked at the paper, and the paper said, have you thought of teaching? And I thought, have I buggery? No way am I doing teaching. We'll pay you for 2 years to train you to be a design and technology teacher. And I thought, oh, okay, well, let's have a look at that. Long story short, I got it. And I loved it from the first time. First time I ever stood in front of a class of kids, it was in Greenwich. It was a rough school at the time, a really rough school, and I had 15-year-olds in front of me, year 10s, and I had a teacher sitting at the back of the class that was supposed to be sitting there whilst I taught 5 or 10 minutes at the front just to see how I was. He had better stuff to do and got up and walked out after 5 minutes and left me with a class of year 10s for an hour. It was the longest hour of my life. But I had enough material in front of me to probably last me about a week. Yeah. You know, so I blagged it, I got through, the kids walked out the door, and as they walked out the door, one of the girls turned around at me and she said, that was all right, actually. And that was like an Oscar to me, you know? It was like, oh man, I'm good at this. Yeah. And I thought, right, I'm really going to dig into this. So I loved it. I loved it. But yeah, I was an accidental teacher. The idea was get a degree, go back into the motor industry. But the first time I ever taught, I thought, nah, I'm not going back. I love this.
And where does your drive come from?
I think from my parents. My parents were Irish immigrants, came over in the 60s just before I was born. They came over with a fiver. That's all they had. My dad came over and went to Hammersmith because it's the only place he'd ever heard of. Found himself a job in a pub there and found himself accommodation. And then for almost a year, he sent nearly every penny back to my mum to save up in Dublin. So I had enough to come over and live here. And they worked really hard, really hard. My mum had 3 jobs. She used to get up at 6 in the morning, do a cleaning job, come back, get us to school, go do another one, then she'd go out again in the evening. And my dad ran pubs. So I never saw him because he was always out in the pub, running the pub. But they worked really, really hard. So I think with myself and my brother, there's a drive there that they've given us, which is, if you're going to do something, do it well.
Yeah.
Don't half do it. Either commit to it or don't do it at all.
Yeah.
Which is something I'm trying to pass on to my kids now.
How many kids have you got?
I've got 3. I've got a 30-year-old who could sell anything. He's got the gift of the gab and he could sell absolutely anything. I've got a 25-year-old that's just finished his psychology degree and is in that stage where he's trying to work out what he wants to do now and where he wants to go, and it's tricky, that first step. And then I've got a 19-year-old at Arts University Bournemouth doing textile design.
Okay.
And loving it. I mean, she's found her clan,
Yeah.
you know, and she's really at home with it, and it's just lovely to see. So, but yeah, I don't care what they do as long as they're happy and as long as they work hard at it and commit to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that drive comes from background.
So you grew up in London?
Grew up in West London, yeah, Chiswick, Shepherd's Bush, and yeah, loved it. Taught there as well for a good part. Fulham, Hammersmith was where a lot of my teaching was done in the early years.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
No idea.
No.
Honest to God, no idea. Yeah, it was... The car mechanic thing came from a careers interview, which I had in year 11. And the careers interview was like, what do you want to do? Don't know. What are you good at? Don't know. I can fix things. Okay, be a car mechanic. So I walked away from that interview thinking, oh, I'll be a car mechanic then. And found that job. And as I say, it worked for me. But I also asked her, what qualifications do I need to be a car mechanic? Well, you need maths, you need English, you need one other. And I thought, well, I've got maths, I can do English, and I'll get arts because I like arts. If she'd have told me I needed 8, I'd have got 8.
Yeah.
She told me I needed 3, so I got 3. So that was the 15-year-old in me. I was a bit of a nasty gets when I was 15. It has to be said.
Like a lot of 15-year-olds.
Yeah, I mean, and that helped later on as a teacher because you could see kids that were 15 and you're thinking, I know exactly where you are because I've been there.
Yeah. So before we go towards the end of the teaching career into D&T, let's talk about kids, because obviously there's the skills gap that we always talk about. There's negative, I suppose, assumptions of today's generation of hardworking or driven, or they don't know what they want, or if they do know what they want, it's to be a YouTube creator, or what did you see throughout the year? Did anything change throughout the years, or was it 14, 15, 16-year-olds? Has it always been the case and it's just a generational thing that you always talk down on a different generation?
It's a really good question. I think kids today get a bad rap, to be honest. I think they want what kids have always wanted, and they want honesty, they want integrity, they don't want to be part of a system, they want to be seen, for who they are, and the modern school system doesn't make that easy.
No.
You're a number if you're not careful. You are, okay, you're an 8 in maths, you're a 7 in English, you're a whatever, and they don't want to be seen like that. I think COVID has hit them really hard. I think we had a socially anxious generation anyway. And I think what COVID's done is locked them in their house, locked them in their room for a year. and it's just made that even worse.
Yeah.
So they find things that are relatively simple, like walking in a room and shaking somebody's hand and looking them in the eye, can be the hardest thing in the world. Taking a phone call can be the hardest thing in the world for some kids, because they don't phone each other, they text each other, they message each other. They don't even text each other, they message each other. So that sort of walking in a room and conversing with somebody and doing all of those things, they were all the things as a head that, you know, I was at Dartford, and ours was the only state school in amongst a load of grammars. And our kids, I remember one competition, we got to the final, and the girls that were in the final were amazing, but they came second, and they came second to one of the grammar schools locally. And the guy that was running the whole thing put his arm around me and he said, "Your kids were better. They just weren't as well versed in speaking. They weren't as confident as they needed to be." So I went back to school thinking, right, okay, I've got Kent kids here now that are proper working class, but in order to compete out there in the world, they've got to be able to talk on the same level as the kids from the grammar school. What do we put in the curriculum that's going to enable them to do that? And it's practice, isn't it? The more you talk, the more you stand in front of an audience that you don't know, the more confident you become at it. But you get that practice at private school, you don't get it in state schools normally. So
that's very true.
I think kids get a bad rap at the moment. I think they are hardworking. I think the majority of them are not that bothered about what they earn. They're bothered, they want a fair wage, they don't want to be exploited. But they actually want to feel that at the end of a week's work they've made a difference somewhere. And any company that works on a value set like that is going to attract young people to them, in my view.
Which I think is probably the case in any generation that has come into a workforce. You know, I look back to when I started, and you know, I worked for a huge company, and it wasn't just my age group, it was the 30, 40, 50-year-olds in the team that all felt that actually we've suddenly become a number on a spreadsheet, and it doesn't feel like I'm valued anymore, and people move on. So it's probably something that businesses should be aware of, not just for young, you know, attracting young talent.
Yeah, I don't think it's a young person thing. I think people generally, if you've done something well,
Get recognition for it.
you should be recognised. You should be told that you've done something well.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of companies do that. I think they just expect that the kids are just going to go in and they're going to perform and they're going to do this, that, and the other. And if they just stopped once a week and just checked in for 5 minutes with a kid and just said, "You did that on Tuesday. It was brilliant. You did that really well."
Yeah.
That kid's going to come back so energised next week and is going to want to do even better, so as it's recognised again. But I don't think enough companies spend enough time on that in order to really big them up. My son, I mean, he won't mind me saying it, the job he's in at the moment, they get him. You know, I call him a Labrador, really. I mean, he needs stroking regularly and feeding regularly, but he absolutely thrives on praise. So he's selling, and he's gone in there 8 months ago, 9 months ago, and he's gone in there not knowing anything about the product that he's selling. Now he's their bestseller, and he's good at sales. He picks it up, but they check in with him once a week, and they just tell him, "Your figures are great. You go in this, you're doing that. Well done. You're doing great." He just needs that stroke.
Yeah.
And if you could do that, and if you can feed back to anyone, doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be kids. It could be you or me. You just need to be told you're doing well.
It's validation.
I think the older you get, the less you need it. You know, I don't need stroking as much these days. But when I was 17, 18, I did. So yeah, I think so. Validation, yeah.
Yeah. What is Engineers Insight? So Engineers Insight is a free mobile app for engineers to have access to industry 24/7 from your phone. So I worked in manufacturing for 12, 13 years, got really frustrated with relying on print to find the latest technologies. So we came up with this newsfeed concept of all the latest products with the manuals, the application videos, CAD files, brochures. You can send inquiries, you can bookmark stuff, so you're not saving on your laptop and it goes obsolete every time a firmware changes. Now there's jobs, so it gets updated every week. You can search keywords, you can search distances from postcodes, and you can apply. You just attach a CV from the files in your phone. And then the next one that's coming is training. So if all goes well, 2025 we'll be launching a central training calendar with the MTC training to allow an engineer to have access to everyone's training courses in one place. So you could book a robot course from any of the big vendors, a PLC course from any of the big vendors, multiple other vendors involved, and then you only raise one PO. So I think that's the quickest overview of Engineers Insight I could give. There was something I read online about when you were a head teacher, developing a secondary free school at some point.
Yeah, I was involved in that, which was...
First, what does that mean, secondary free school?
Oh, it's a long story. We had... you've got academy chains. Now, the academies are basically set up almost as businesses. They are PLCs, effectively. And any chain can come into an area and can set up a school with government if the government gives them the support to do it, to build the school. Now, we had... Where I was chair of the secondary heads, so we had, I think, 12 schools locally, 14 maybe, and we all sort of worked with each other. So if we had a student that was causing particular issues in one school and it just wasn't working for them in that school, then we would know that there was another head nearby that we could talk to and say, look, would you give this kid a chance? These are the problems, and 9 times out of 10 they'd say yes. So we had this sort of collegiate that really worked well. And then there was an outside chain that wanted to come in and wanted to build a school, but made it pretty clear that it wasn't going to join our gang, as it were. You know, it was going to be its separate thing, and it was going to do its separate thing. And we didn't want that. We wanted to keep it to the rules that we worked to, because they worked. So we created our own school. We basically created the curriculum for it. We found a site for it. We did everything. It was like having 2 jobs for a while. I was running a school, and then I was helping a group that were building another school. And we got the money for it. I mean, that school's there now. It's a thriving school now. It's in as part of the collegiate of other schools in the area. It worked, but for about 2.5 years, we were doing everything to convince government that we could do it, that we could manage it ourselves. It was great to be involved with, and I must admit, every time I drive past there, I just think, I helped make that happen. That's nice. And you know, I keep up with the news from it, and the school's doing amazing.
Would you say that's your proudest achievement?
I think I haven't reached my proudest achievement yet. You know, design and technology is so important for the future. And this sounds huge, but I think if we're really going to have kids that are coming into tech sectors, coming into design, coming into manufacturing, knowing what it is that they're going into, that can use their hands, use their head, and have got it in here in the heart as well, that they want to do this work. If you take design and technology out of schools, which is a real threat, then I think you're choking a supply chain that is really important. So I think if I can manage to leave, and you know, I'm nearly 62 now, I'm going to give this another 4 or 5 years maybe, but if I can manage to leave with design and technology going the right way, and the numbers going and government recognising the importance of it, that would be my greatest achievement. So I'm not there yet.
It's a great answer. What is government's view on D&T?
Oh, this government I'm hopeful for. They're making right noises. They're actually saying that, you know, skills are equally as important as knowledge. This whole is it skills or is it knowledge argument that's been going on with the last government for 12 years or longer, it's complete nonsense, because it's both. It's obvious it's both. But they came in with a ideologically led viewpoint that knowledge was everything, knowledge was power. And I think it was based on the privileged upbringing that many of them had. So they thought, well, you know, I went to whatever school and it did me no harm to learn Latin, so therefore everyone should learn Latin. And that filters to the way that they measure schools. I think Progress 8's been really problematic. For those that don't know what Progress 8 is, as a head teacher, every student coming into your school carries a series of expected grades in various subjects. And if you make those expected grades, then you get points for it. And those points add up across the year group to give you a score, which is a really important score because it shows how successful or not your school is. But what it's done accidentally, I think it's accidentally, is it's taken all the creative subjects and made them not as important as maths, English, science, geography, history. They're far more important in the last government's eyes than anything creative. So if you want to do drama, if drama's your thing. I had one head who was brilliant, and when I was a deputy, I was standing on the gate one day and there was kids coming in and their uniforms all over the place, and we were trying to sort all of that stuff out, all that boring stuff that you've got to do as a head or a deputy. And they were coming in and he said, our job is to, every single one of these kids has got a switch, that's something that we can give them that they love. And if we can find that switch and switch it on, they are going to thrive. Our job is to find a switch, and many of them don't even know where the switch is. And that is one of the most insightful things anyone's ever said to me, because with kids that I've met over the years, everyone's got something, everyone's got a passion. Mm-hmm. Just find a passion. You know, I'm great at sport, I'm brilliant at 500, 400 metres or whatever it might be. Great, let's give you an opportunity to show that. I'm great at drama. I can do drama. Okay, let's let you do that. I'm good at art. I'm good at DT. I'm good at whatever it might be. Just let them for 2 hours a week. Let them shine. But what the school system does at the moment is it pushes them into what's expected from the school and what's the academic subjects that they might not like. They still got to do them. I'm not saying they haven't got to do them, but let them shine. Let them do whatever. So yeah, I just think the current government is trying to reshape it, but it's trying to reshape so many things. There's the challenge that, you know, what impact can it have? We have a curriculum review going on at the moment, and I had feedback last week from the curriculum review team, and let's just say it gave me hope. Okay. So I got my fingers crossed that at the end of this year we're going to get a review that says, actually, we see the significance of creative subjects and we think we should come back. You know, music, every kid at my school, and I had a real mixture of kids in my school, my last school. I had some kids that lived in £4 million houses up the road, and I had other kids that lived on a council estate 2 miles away. Every kid in year 7 learnt how to play an instrument, free, no charge. They might not carry that on, but they learnt how to play an instrument. And it might be a ukulele, by the way. We had a ukulele band because ukuleles were really cheap. So we had a ukulele band, but every kid learnt how to play a ukulele or whatever, and they loved it. Yeah. And I think every kid should have that opportunity to do something and find what they're good at. Yeah. But yeah, long answer to a question, but I'm hopeful now. More hopeful than when one cabinet minister in the last government said, your subject really is a hobby. It's not a subject. If you want to do what you do, you should do it after school in a club. Yeah, enough said, enough said. So Jaguar Land Rover is a hobby, is it? Bentley's a hobby. Yeah. Rolls Royce is a hobby.
The whole supply
Systems
chain
is a hobby.
Yeah.
Don't start me.
Yeah, yeah. So teaching, I suppose being a teacher, people see as a job that, you know, you sort of know what the job looks like. What does a deputy and a head teacher do?
You are running a business, except you ain't got shareholders. Well, you have. You've got parents. And you haven't got profit and loss. You just can't lose money. You've got to run it on the budget you've got. The budget that I had at school was a lot bigger than the budget I've got now with the association. At one stage it was nearly £12 million a year for the school that I was running. Okay. I had 200 staff, and most of the salary went on most of the budget went on salary. Yeah. You had probably 9%, 10% of the budget that you had choices with. But yeah, you're running a business and you're running it in a way, it's entirely up to you as head. You've actually got a lot of power as head. So you can run a school that is all set on discipline because you think discipline is the most important thing. So therefore the kids all walk on one side of the corridor, their ties are all done up, their blazers are on, everything. I'm not saying those things are unimportant, they're important. But there's more important things than that. What I wanted was, I knew that there were kids in my school that at home, Dad had gone years ago. Mum was struggling and was relying a little bit too much on a bottle of wine every night to keep her going. They had 3 younger brothers or sisters that they had to get to primary school in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
If they turned up 2 minutes late to school because they'd got their brother or sister to the primary up the road and then had come to me, what they didn't need was an hour's detention every night for us. But then explaining that to other teachers was really difficult because he's arrived 2 minutes late to my lesson, he needs an hour's detention. He's just fed his brothers and sisters and brought them to primary school, and then he's come in, so give him a break a little bit. So you have to balance all of those things. What I wanted was to run a school that belonged to the kids, and what I mean by that is it's not there for the adults in the building, it's there for them, and it's there to serve them. And I wanted them to be able to drop their shoulders when they came into school. As soon as they weren't coming to school, they're in a safe place. They know they're not going to be attacked. They know they're not going to be threatened. They know that they're not going to have to deal with all the stuff they're going to have to deal with outside of school. So they could just relax, drop their shoulders, and just learn and enjoy learning, because learning should be fun.
Mm-hmm.
For most of the time, that served me well. There were moments where it didn't. The end of my second headship didn't end the way I wanted it to end. We had a really dodgy Ofsted, and I left. I lost the passion for it. But it is a really powerful job. You're in charge of a community, if you like, and you get to set the tone within your school as well, which is really important.
Is there anything that you learned from them days that helped you in your business now?
You're never going to keep everybody happy, and I am a people pleaser. So there have been times in my life where I've tried to keep everybody happy. I realise now that that's an unachievable thing. I worry less about that now. I also learned that there's so much you can do on your own, but you actually need people around you supporting you and taking the weight off you sometimes. And there were times as a head where it was too much on me and it wasn't enough on the supporting crew, as it were. And you just can't do that. You can do that for a short period of time. You can't do that for a long period of time. The reason I left headship was it was taking too much out of me and it was taking too much away from my family. And if I'd have carried on doing it, I'd have probably broke my health.
Yeah.
Because I was doing, again, I'll give you an example. Like the social service system is not what it was. So you've got a student that if you send her home, she's going to get abused. Yet when you phone up social services and you say, I don't want to send the student home because I think she's going to be abused, they do an assessment, and on their scale, that's a 6 out of 10. On my scale, it's an 11 out of 10. Because I know that there's a fair chance if I send this kid home, she's going to be abused, sexually, physically, or otherwise. I don't want to send that kid home. So I've sat in school till 12 o'clock at night sometimes, phoning social services every 20 minutes, telling them I ain't going anywhere until somebody picks this kid up and takes him to a safe place. That was becoming all too regular. And it was when one of my kids said to me, you need to be home a little bit more, Dad, because you're looking after other kids and we need looking after too. And it was like, okay, I got it.
It's hard hitting.
That hit really hard. But you have got to, you've got to push it out. If you've got a great team around you, which I've had over the years, then it's a manageable job. If you've got a team around you that are not there for whatever reason, then I think it becomes an undoable job. It's stressful. Mm-hmm. It's stressful because you don't want any kid to fail because of an action that you've taken. Yeah. Or to get hurt because of an action that you've taken.
Yeah. What would your employees at D&T, how would they describe you as a leader?
You'd have to ask them really, but I would like to think I'm pretty chilled as a leader. I'm also very trusting. I don't believe in the, you give a whole class of detention because one person's making the noise. If one person's making the noise, you talk to that one person. Same at work, there's 16, 17 of us. And if one person's not quite doing what you want them to do, you talk to that one person, you don't talk to everybody. So I'd like to think, also I've got much better, I think, at strategy. You know, there's no point in working hard if you're not working in a direction and you've got end goals that you can say, we've done it, we've made it there. You never get there, but you reach a point and you think, right, we've done really well there. You know, and it was, membership is a good example. You know, we went from 8,700 to 12,000 and everyone was like, that's brilliant, we've got 12,000. It's like, yeah, I want 15 now. And we went to 15, we went to 20, we went to 25. I want 35 now, I want 40 now, that's what I'm after. But in order to get that 40, we've got to convince more teachers that what we're offering is useful to them.
Yeah.
It's like a gym membership. If you've got a gym membership, but you only go to the gym once a year, you're not going to renew it next year. So we need to show them this is the best gym in the world. That's what we're trying to do, in our own way.
And what is the number that you want to hit by the time you retire?
Membership-wise, if we hit 40,000, I'll be really pleased. And like that.
And what does that mean for actual education?
It means that there's more schools that are connected, because that's part of what we do, because it can be a really lonely job, which sounds stupid. You know, you go in your classroom in the morning, you see 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds. You don't see another adult all day long if you're not careful. And you don't know what the school up the road, 2 miles up the road, is doing, because you ain't got the time really to talk to them. So what we do is try and join that up a little bit. And what it would mean is that we've actually got better design and technology happening in schools across the country, which means that kids are learning better, which means that that's going on to sectors like engineering, manufacturing, etc. If those things were a result of having 40,000 members, that 40,000 is not a random figure. That is, I think that's achievable. And what it does is, a lot of my job is lobbying. So I'm in Westminster and I'm talking to Lords or to MPs and I'm trying to get them to see the value of the subject. If I go in and I try and lobby and they say, how many members have you got? And I say 8,700, they go, yeah, thanks, we're not really interested. If I can say, at the moment I can 30,000, oh right, okay, I'm interested in that. If I could go in with 40,000, they'll be even more interested. So it's that sort of traction that it gives us that's really important as well.
What does lobbying look like?
It's a job I never thought I'd be doing. It looks like going to various dinners that you don't really want to be at and sitting there and talking because the right people are on the table. It looks like going to various shows and doing a 10-minute input at a show that people then connect with you and you follow up from there. It means tracking down Lords or MPs that you think are sort of likely to get it, and therefore are likely to make a bit of noise in Westminster about, you know, supporting the subject.
Have you had any success with that?
Yeah, we have. There are some MPs and there are some Lords that really do get it. They understand it, and they basically, this is one thing of many that they do. But there's been a few that have said, if you need help, I'm here, I will help you. If you want something brought up in Commons and you want it tabled, just make sure you don't abuse it, because I can't do it every day. But if you need something brought up, just let us know. So the more you work at it, it's probably 40-50% of my job now, is making sure that people understand what design and technology is and what it can be as well, because what it is isn't what it can be. It can be so much better.
What are the roadblocks that you get from these people? The ones that don't want to engage, what's their reason?
They don't understand it. They don't understand it, and a lot of parents don't understand it either. And I think part of the problem is there's a chain of contentment that we've got to break a little bit. Is kids love doing it at secondary school because they get in a workshop and they get to do stuff that they don't get to do in a normal lesson. So they enjoy that, and that's fun. The teachers are happy doing the clocks, the boxes, whatever it might be, because they've always done that. So therefore they're in their comfort zone and they're happy. The parents come in and the parents smell the workshop, and they smell that sawdust and burnt wood and the other bits, and there's a nostalgia that's, and it's like, oh, I remember this, yeah, I made a clock when I was at school. Yeah, they're making the same bloody clock now, they're doing the same thing. So there's the nostalgia there as well, so the parents don't complain about it. And in a good school as well, you can switch it on at the end of year 9 and you can force the kids through an examination, and then they get a good grade at the end. So the deputy head and the head and everybody there's happy. The governors are happy. So everyone's happy. So why rock the boat? because what we're teaching is not right. What we're teaching is really 1950, not 2030, which is where we want to be. So we should be, and it's not about the technology. The technology's great, you know. If they've got laser cutters, they've got 3D printers, brilliant. One parent said, I came in and I smelt that sawdust and I thought, oh, here we go, this is, I'll remember this. He said, then I walked in and there was 3D printers everywhere on the go. There were laser cutters, there was CAD. He said, your problem is you need a new smell. And I just thought, that is a metaphor for so much.
Yeah, yeah.
We do need a new smell. We need to show that we're a thinking subject. This is my latest mantra. We're a thinking subject that makes, not a making subject that occasionally thinks.
Yeah.
And we're a problem-solving subject. We're giving kids real problems to solve. And it involves around sustainability, circularity, all of those things. Because kids have got so much anxiety around all of that. They know it's there, but they can't do anything about it. Well, we can empower them to do something about it. You know, just with what you buy, you can do something about that. So if we can train them in that, then they will feel that they're actually doing a positive thing, not a negative thing. They want to be part of a solution.
What's one thing people might be surprised to learn about you?
I don't know. I mean, football's my passion. I'm a Brentford supporter, season ticket holder. I've been since I was. My old man took me when I was 4 years old, so I had no chance with that one. So, but that wouldn't surprise anyone. Anyone that knows me for 5 minutes will know that. I think I'm a beekeeper.
Oh, really?
Which will probably surprise a lot of people.
Surprise me, yeah.
And that's something I've always fancied doing, something I've always wanted to do. Took it up a couple of years ago. Found I'm allergic to bee pollen. That I actually can fit if I get stung, which is a bit of an issue. But yeah, I love it, and I've just found it. I found something that I used to play football, and playing football was wonderful because for 90 minutes I just thought about chasing that ball. Now I can go in and look at bees, and I just don't think of anything else apart from the bees that are in front of me for 90 minutes. So, yeah, it's a newfound passion.
Mm-hmm. Just a way to unwind, I suppose, take your mind off business.
It's partly a sort of ecological thing. I mean, bees are threatened, so if I can do something positive to keep them, then that makes a difference. The byproduct is I've got about 50 jars of honey at home, which are amazing.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like homemade honey. It tastes different, it's gorgeous. But also, they're just incredible creatures. They go out in different directions. They fly for up to 4 miles, 5 miles. They come back and they do something called a waggle dance, where they sit on the side of the hive and they literally dance. The back end moves, and that's communicating to the other bees where the pollen is. They're telling the other bees where to go and get this pollen because they found some great stuff. This every time I think I know everything there is to know, I learn a little bit more about them. So it's fun. Yeah.
Would you consider yourself successful?
I think, yeah. I saw this. I looked at some videos beforehand, and I knew you were going to ask this, and I've been asking myself all the way up in the car. Do I consider myself successful? I think there is a danger in feeling that you're successful, that you've made it, that you're there. And I don't think I'll ever feel that I'm there. So I'm always looking for that next stretch, to that next bit. I think success will be, as I said earlier, if I can get D&T back on a positive footing, not just me, but the community working with me. If we can get D&T back where it belongs, I'll have a happy retirement. I'll go away thinking that's a job done, because for 12 years it went down, 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 down. Last 2 years it's bottomed and has gone up a little bit. Now I want to keep that growing, I want to keep that going, and I want to convince as many politicians as possible that this subject really matters in school. I also want to convince as many teachers as possible that collectively we can make this something better. We can grow it and make it something, and I know we can, because there are so many brilliant things happening out there in schools. I could point to schools not a million miles away from here where the D&T is outstanding, and we just need to grow that and help teachers to grow that more. So No, I'm not there yet. There's still more to achieve. There always will be, I think. Even when I've retired, I'll find something else.
That was my next question. Do you think you'll truly retire?
I hope not.
I can feel it. You're still so passionate, and you've already said you've not hit a success. Are you just going to keep grabbing the next thing?
There's a right time with anything where you think, I've given it all I can, and actually it's up to somebody else now to pick it up and run. And I'll know when the right time is with the association, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that could come very quickly, or it could come very slowly. It's more likely to come slowly, I think. But all my mates are retiring at the moment. My mates, some of them are a few years younger than me, and they're retiring. And they're like, when are you going? And my answer to that is, when I'm bored of it, and when I don't get the buzz about getting up and going to work in the morning. You know, I don't ever wake up in the morning and think, oh God, I've got to go to work, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. I am really privileged to do what I do.
Yeah.
I am so lucky to have found this job at this stage of my life, where you can have influence in a school on the 1,200, 1,400 kids in your school, and to a certain extent on the parents that work with you with the school as well. But within this job, you can sort of have influence on most schools in the country, and you can take best practice and share it and do all of those things. That's exciting. And no, I'm not ready to go at the moment. There's too much life in the old dog yet.
Okay, my last one is the successes that you've had along your career. Would you attribute to hard work or luck?
I think you make your own luck. I very rarely does it fall on your lap. I think hard work makes it, you know, and sometimes, nearly always, there is a cycle to it where you go in, you see the task and you think, wow, that's unachievable. But you then take first steps towards that task. You work really hard to get to a point. You get to that point, you get success, everybody's patting each other on the back. That's where I get worried, because at that stage, there's only really one way if you keep patting each other on the back, and that's down.
Yeah.
So at that stage, you've got to refocus it and reshape it and move the target a little bit. And I'm always looking for that stage where we're at the top and everyone's feeling great. We reached it probably last year at the association. You know, we reached nearly 32,000 members, and everyone was like, "This is fantastic. We're going to get 40. We're going to get." And I thought, well, no, let's just easy on now. We've still got so much that we've got to achieve. There's still so much we've got to do. Numbers have gone back a little bit in the last 12 months, and you could sort of see that coming. But I think that's a blip, and then the next bit will come on the other side. So yeah, I think you make your luck through working hard. I don't think it just drops on you.
Okay, that's the interview over. Appreciate your time.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, me too. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, Tony.